All right, peace and blessings, family. Long time no see for some of us, but I got my brother back up in here, Ray Jones, and he is from ADOS. And if you don't know what ADOS is, we're going to learn about that today. But you're also going to learn about all of these reparation bills that are coming past people's desks and what do they really mean? And what do they really mean for us? Let's just be honest. What do they really mean for us? So, Brother Ray, welcome back. Thank you for joining me again.
Oh, you're so welcome, and it's so great to be here, Earth Mama.
Right on.
Really appreciate it, and I appreciate your work, sis. Everything you do in the community.
Thank you so much. Tell us, what does ADOS stand for, and what is ADOS mission?
So ADOS stands for American Descendants of Slavery, and our mission is to identify that we are a lineage, and we're a distinct people. And our goal is we're also a movement, and we're pushing for reparations via a Black agenda. Mm-hmm. So not only is it reparations, but it's a Black agenda, but reparations is the centerpiece of our Black agenda. So what we'll be discussing today is different bills that are being passed in local municipalities all over the country and what they mean for us.
Right on, right on. So with that being said, how long have ADOS been around? What formed ADOS?
ADOS has been around strong for like really a year and a half, 2 years at this point. But really it kicked off last year. But it was started by Yvette. It's the brain trust of Yvette Carnell, who's a political strategist, and Antonio Moore, who's an attorney out of Los Angeles, California. So they came up with American Descendants of Slavery because they recognized that we were all being put in a blanket category of being Black. So that's a problem when we're talking about reparations and making us whole, because if the umbrella is so big, it includes people that are not owed reparations. Not that we're against any other Black people on the planet. We realize that we are one people and we are a family, but when it comes to law, you have to be distinct on who the claimant is and who you're bringing a case against. So Haitians would have a reparations case with France. Jamaica would have a reparations case with the UK. So we have a reparations case with the United States of America. So that's what this is all about. This is not anything that cause division or anything. We just have a distinct case. So they came up with that term, ADOS Atlanta, to let everybody know and to even let us know that we are distinct because of our lineage and what we've been through. No one else has gone through the type of slavery that we went through. So that's what makes us a distinct people when it comes to this justice claim.
Now, you know what's beautiful about that, and the way you broke it down and explain it, is that I do think sometimes people think that slavery kind of looked the same everywhere, but we know it did not. And I think sometimes we forget that even with the so-called Europeans or white people, whatever you want to call them, we know that the people who colonized America weren't even like, they were like almost like the criminals, the real criminal, like out of jail people.
Right.
You know, like they didn't always, I mean, even when we had the pour the tea in the Boston Harbor, those are people like, nah, you know, we like them gangsters. Like, you know, right. we like, nah, we don't care you gave us money for the ships to come over here. Screw y'all. So I think sometimes we got to remember that, and that we had it was different for us. We're probably the farthest away you could really be from Africa when you look at the enslavement. Like the last stop would have been way here in North America, as we know, that's the United States. So I thank you for sharing that, because I think sometimes when we're talking, that's why I'm not into generics, because I think that's kind of dangerous, like to act like me and you was having the same existence. It don't mean that we not people, but it mean our experience is different, and it affected us a little differently. So I think that if you really are about that life and you really are Pan-Africanist, you should be able to understand that.
Exactly. And those terms aren't necessarily mutually exclusive.
Right on.
Because really, Pan-Africanists should support what we're doing.
Right on.
Because all it is you got different places around the planet. Real Pan-Africanism is about supporting the local movements on the ground, wherever they may be. So Pan-Africanists technically shouldn't even have a problem with people doing that. And if they do, then they really have to evaluate how serious they are about the movement that they claim to be a part of.
Right on. So here in California, we have a reparation task force bill, AB 3121. This California task force bill is going to I guess at this time it was going to the Senate for a vote. Are you familiar with that bill at all?
Not really.
So what I heard of it, and I guess this hearing was on July 30th, so we're definitely some ways away. But this was them to vote on a bill where we're just going to, here we go, task force bill. This is about us having the conversation around it.
Yeah.
A conversation.
Exactly. What we got to talk about. So other groups get legislation, they get promised tangible things.
Yeah.
But we get conversations.
Yeah.
We get studies. We get those things. We don't get anything tangible. And that's why the way we've been conducting politics is completely wrong for settling for that.
Right. This what is this? Evanston outlines plans for reparation. Is that Ohio? Where is that?
That's Illinois. But what you sent, can we take a look at that? Because it's a couple of things. It's not the Evanston one, but let's deal with the California one first.
Okay, let's look at that.
Because it's a couple of things in there that I noticed that I want to bring attention to.
Right on.
Overall, it's good, but I don't like calling things reparations if it's just on a local level, because they can use that to backfire against us, because they'll say, well, all of these local municipalities have their own reparations plan, so we don't need a national reparations. We don't need national reparations for Black people, because they say, well, Evanston has this, they have this in LA, so we just got to be mindful of that language. And as long as it's in the language,
is that what you're talking about? By state?
By state or by city.
Okay.
Because you got some cities doing things, calling it reparations. That's danger. That's dangerous.
I know. But isn't that how most things start, though?
It is how most things start. So it's good that it's on the national radar and it's a part of the national conversation in local areas. But like I say, if we call it reparations, it can be a little confusing, and they can use that as an excuse to say we don't need a nationwide reparations program. So I don't have a problem with anything that's being done, except change the name and don't call it reparations. You can call it anything else, but if you call it reparations, it gets a little murky. But some of the bills have in the language, this in no way takes away from the nationwide need for reparations on the federal level.
Gotcha.
So I believe that bill is one of those. I think they say that in the bill.
Okay. Okay. I just see the word task force bill, and I'll be like, why are we doing a task force? But that's, but I get it. And this on here has enjoying Adolph's California Thursday on that was last week for this, and I just I just say fight. I'm always trying to support people in the fight. I get it. I think different people have different tactics, and one of the things I learned from history with Black folks, there is no one way to do anything. As long as we all trying to get to the same destiny, because if we're waiting for each other to agree, it's probably never gonna happen. But if you say, hey, we all trying to get to this road and you want to go around the back, that's fine. Somebody else may come straight up the middle. Like, I just feel like I think that's the one thing about being ADOS is that we never can really agree sometimes on certain things. But I say just fight where you are. And because the truth of the matter is, no matter what they do, your enemy is gonna always figure out a way to use it against you.
Exactly.
Even if you have the perfect language, these people are masters at manipulation.
Right.
And I was always taught by my uncle, blessed memory, who used to say these people would never make a law where they would convict themselves. Not possible. They could just make up another law. Escape that law. Like, I mean, that's what they've been doing since they've been here. I just know the Native people have signed over 500 treaties and they haven't honored one.
Right. They speak.
That's a thought.
Yeah, we know they speak with forked tongue.
Right on. Right on.
We still have to, just like you said, we still have to fight.
You gotta fight these people
on different levels, and however you can get in and fight, do so. But we got to make sure we don't get in each other's way. I think we can do that. You know, and they also know how to use us against each other.
No, that's how they've been able to sustain.
Right.
You know how to make that porch Negro fight that house Negro and keep the field Negro on the field. I mean, I'm just saying. Exactly. It's very old. I mean, I always say their strategies never change up. They're just consistent. They know what works.
Yeah.
They know what distracts. They know what keep us held up in terms of just, but I always say, just keep pushing. Like, just, having these kind of conversations kind of helps us out a little bit of thinking about that. Okay, let's think about what that looks like. Because, people kind of always start right from their base. And sometimes you don't see your base as a national base. You see your base as a local base. And then sometimes it turns into the, citywide base. And then it may turn into the state base. Sometimes, before we know that this is a global thing. I mean, but I think it helps for us to have some distinctions in there. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, I just don't want certain people getting reparations that they're not. This is not their fight. Like, y'all just got here, you should not be getting money. Let's just be honest.
Exactly.
But that's just me.
No, that's real. And as long as the language is specific, I don't have an issue with it. But they love making it blanket. So, like, even with Evanston, Illinois, the language in that basically is giving. It's not even giving reparations in a monetary sense, but they're giving it to Black people in Evanston. But the majority of the Black people in Evanston aren't even Black American descendants of slavery.
Oh.
So they're giving it to, it's almost like an immigrant Black community demographically.
Ooh.
So they need to be specific, but they're not specific.
Okay. Now that you just made a great case right there.
Yeah. So that's the thing that, when they word it and they call it reparations, that's the problem, because at the end of the day, and reparations need to be cash payments.
Right.
It needs to be cash payments. It needs to be land. It needs to be a whole lot of things. It doesn't stop with cash payments, but cash payments have to be a part of the conversation.
So do you think, because I'm looking at some of the language, they're talking about equity. Do you think there's a difference between equity and reparations?
Yes, and equity has come up so many times today. Like equity to me is a bad word. It's a bad word. You cursing me out because we can't even have we can't even have equity without repair. Don't even focus on equity yet. People, but they quick to throw that equity out there because that's not dealing with what is old, you know? So I don't even like discussing the equity thing. We need to be talking about repair and making us whole because of what was done in the past. So I think whenever the word equity is used, it raises a red flag to me. That's one of those words that we got to look at and really double take and make sure that they are sincere about change.
Sister Shirley is saying, do you have to prove anything like a generational history? You talking
Well,
about to be an ADOS or just throwing it out there? Okay.
I'm pretty sure she means to be considered American descendant of slavery. You would need to know, you would need to be able to trace one ancestor back to the time of slavery. You would need to, along with the fact of on your identification, whether it's, you know, any type of government paperwork that you've signed on there, you need to have claim to be Black. And we talked about that because some people are out here passing. If you're out here passing and you don't identify with being Black, Negro, which is the term we don't use anymore, African American, if you don't identify with those terms, then we got to question what did you identify with before? So, and it's real easy to trace. They got genealogy. It's real easy to trace your ancestors back to the time. Like they had good records. They kept good records. So that won't be an issue.
Wow. I noticed with the Everson that they're going to use revenue from the recreational cannabis retailers. Hold on, before I get to that, I want to say when I think of that word equity, sometimes I think the opposition don't run on one track; it runs on several. The most I ever heard that word equity was with the LBGQ people, and that's why that word is being so overused because they're using that to get their stuff. This is not about the descendants of enslaved people. Like this is not, they definitely not thinking about that. They're using that as to say, we want to have equity like everybody else. So that's on a totally different track. They're not even thinking about us. Please believe it. And you know what is inside of that LBGQ, and they're not even talking about the Black people who are like that. We're talking like white people in their bid to be equal with their own counterpart or to have equity with them. Does that make sense? So I said that's what to say. When I hear that word equity, I almost feel like, now you know you ain't talking about us because you ain't never even been equal, let alone to be, you don't want us to be equal to you, let alone to have equity. But they want to use money from this recreational cannabis retailers, which I know in our city here in Sacramento, most of the people who got those licenses, I think they had maybe two Black people who got the licenses. So even though for years they locked up Black folks who was selling cannabis or weed or marijuana or whatever you want to call it this decade, how do you feel about that? Because I mean, I feel like the people who went to jail for that deserve some money directly.
I totally agree. We can't even have that conversation. People think that the end all and be all is to make it legal. Yeah, whatever. But my issue is, just like you say, Black people have been criminalized for the last 20, 30, 40 years behind something that they're going to make legal, and they're not going to be able to benefit when we are the ones that really, to a certain extent, invested so much money in that on both sides, as far as we invested time served in prison, in the penitentiary for selling those drugs. And now you're going to legalize it and you're making it so the ones who were incarcerated are not able to benefit from what's being sold now. And I just think that's a travesty. And really on the local level, Black people need to make sure that we have right of refusal, and first we have preferential treatment. That's why but the word equity is dangerous again. We're not dealing with equal. We need preferential treatment to make up for what was done in the past. So they throw equity out there, and then it's all about, no, everyone's the same. We want equality across the board. No, that's not what this is about. That's why one of the major things we're doing at ADOS is we're pushing to change our designation. We're no longer going to be recognized as African American. That's not good enough. We need to be recognized as American descendants of slavery to a certain extent so we can make that difference.
Right on.
And be treated as a special class that needs special attention.
One of my good sister friends, she's like really like a sister to me. She thinks that Black people should be seen as a protected class.
Yeah, that's what I meant, protected class.
I'm agreeing with you.
Right.
Because, I mean, come on. I think some of this stuff is coming down the pipe because they know that we're at the end. You ever get to the end of something in order to try to save it, you be like, just give them what they want. Just give it, because this is almost over anyway. You know, or you're trying to prolong America.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you can't trust no kind of deal with them. Let's just be honest. But they know, like, you know, this could really be blowing up in smoke because you ain't never had these many things happening at the same time where everybody can see it. You know what I'm saying? And so I feel like, yeah, let's give them reparations. But it's always like, you can't tell me how you're going to pay me back.
Exactly.
You call the phone company, be like, look, this is how I'm going to pay this bill. They be like, if you don't get you owe me, your phone will be off, you know? So I don't know how people can really try to attempt to tell us, this is what we're going to do for you. We want y'all to go to school for free. What if I don't want to go to your school?
Right, exactly.
What if I want to do that? Why can't you just give me some money? Why can't you make sure every day, if you're a descendant of a enslaved person, that you get, I don't know, $10,000 a month for 200 years? I don't know. I'm just saying. But I think it has to be something more tangible. But you can't tell me what you think you owe me.
Exactly.
You can't do that nowhere else in America.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be like, this week I'm gonna pay $10 on this car note. They'll be like, are you serious? Go on, pick this car up. So I don't know how that feels. How do you think that's going to play out in Illinois?
It might pass, but we got people up there that is making them change the language.
Okay.
Y'all can do that for the people up there, but change the language. That's it. Don't call it reparations. Okay. And when they do that, what they got going on is fine. We don't have an issue with it.
Okay. All right.
So we got ADOS that's making moves to do that.
Right on. So North Carolina, that's where my grandmother lives. She's 95. North Carolina City approves. She lives in Washington. North Carolina City approves reparation, apologizes for its role in slavery. Now, is role in slavery and racial discrimination, voting to provide anonymously to provide reparations in the form of community investment to help the Black community. See, community investment. What does that mean?
Right.
Oh God.
Exactly.
What's your thoughts on this?
Well, as you can see, it says North Carolina's Asheville City Council apologizes for its role in slavery and racial discrimination, voting unanimously to provide reparations in the form of community investments to help Black residents. But this is the crazy part. The council voted 7-0 on Tuesday night on the measure to mitigate racial disparities. The reparations will not provide direct cash payments, as some have suggested. So no, that's no good. It's no good because people need direct payments. And if you're talking about anything else, it's just not good enough. So change the language, be specific of who it's going to, and then we can have a conversation. So it's pretty much the same thing. They're trying to do this on purpose so they can say they gave reparations, but they didn't give money necessarily. Who's who are they investing to? Who are the entities that'll be getting those monies?
Wow. Well, that city is asking for a community reparations commission to make concrete recommendations on where to funnel programs and resources. We already got programs and resources. Let's just stop right there. So we don't need that. I think America, we know that America was built on slave labor, which gave them cash.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? That gave them cash. So why can't you just give us cash?
Exactly.
You know, exactly. Times with all the years, and that's a whole nother story. I don't know why they just can't give the cash. Then they talked about like wanting to resolve the budgetary programming, increasing minority home ownership. Minority. No,
right.
No. Let's talk about it. Let's make that clear. Let's make that clear. And then it talks about career opportunities. That's what they've been telling us since the 60s. Even though they brought us here to do a job, they just didn't want to pay our ancestors. Strategies on growing equity and generational wealth. No, the cash payment is the generational wealth.
Exactly.
That came from my ancestors. Like, I'm old dad.
Right.
So I agree with you. It definitely says closing the gap in healthcare, education, employment, paying neighborhoods, safety and fairness within the criminal justice system. None of that has anything to do with reparations to me.
Exactly.
Supposedly we've been working on that.
Right.
I could be wrong. But from what I can see, I don't think so. One of the things I am happy about, to be honest, at least we're talking about reparations, because when I was coming up, you would hear people say, we ain't gonna never get that. And I'd be like, you just gonna write that off like that?
Exactly. So that's the good thing we having the conversation.
Right on.
You know? But now, just like you're saying, they're still playing the games, and we just got to be mindful and really looking at everything, because you mentioned it. Minority is everyone except straight white men. Yeah. That's what minority is. Right. So when you're saying, and if I can get anything, if I can stress anything to your viewers right now, don't identify yourself as a person of color or a minority. Yeah. That's so key, because minority is everyone except a straight white man. You're letting white people in through the back door with the LGBT movement. That's why they want to align with you and say, we're all minorities together. No, it's not the case. Those white gay men did not go through what we went through. So you're actually letting white
go through every day.
Right. So we can't fall for the controlled opposition when, with them picking our leadership. If you notice and you're really mindful, most of our leadership that they're promoting right now is LGBT.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that, because they want to let their people in through the back door. So yeah, we just got to be mindful of the language, and whenever we see it, we're like, no. And what you notice is when they talk about the problem, it's black. But when they talk about the solution on what they're going to do, they slide in minority and people of color with the solution. So that goes back to the equity thing. No equity. Equity is off the table until you repair. Then we can have a conversation about equity, but we can't run at the same place if we're behind. You got to be brought up and start the race. And it might not be equal, because y'all owe us a whole lot more than y'all think that y'all want to admit. So
they don't want to pay.
That they don't want to pay. But the fight is important, and we still got to fight the fight to put them on blast, because I know a lot of people say, look, they ain't gonna never give us. I don't know what you're doing. Look, they gonna do what they gonna do. That we already know. Yes, all of this is true, but just the work, just us doing this work is actually unifying us and bringing us together, because we have a common goal, and we need to move more like a tribe, a family. So that's what this is all about. By the time we actually get to that reparations, we're going to be so on point because of the lessons that we're learning in this process. Are you familiar with the Susu?
Yes, I was a part of a susu when I was lived in Jersey.
Okay, so you go to Black Americans and they tell you a susu don't work, a susu don't work. But
Yes.
the reason why it doesn't work for us is because we don't trust each other.
I was just telling somebody that.
We have to have trust for the susu to work, but we've been so detached. We've been so conditioned to not trust each other, to have animosity towards one another. We're not able to do what other cultures are able to do to a certain extent. So it's not that the susu doesn't work for us, but it really shows you how connected you are with your circle of influence, really, and what position they're in financially to even get in the susu. So it all comes down to trust, and we're doing that work with this movement, bringing us back together and say, look, we are one at the end of the day.
Well, I think it's also about and I agree with everything you said. I also think it's about the timing. I really think it's about time. I think having someone like Donald Trump in office has made Black people deal with Black people that they wouldn't have dealt with before. When we had white people who liked us and let us hang out at their house and, screw their women and whatever, then we were cool. But to have someone who is clearly hating your guts mean you don't go to them for anything. Now you're going to turn back to yourself, because right now everybody's going for self. Latinos are going for their stuff. The Asian folks are going for their stuff. Everybody's going, even the Africans from the continent are going for their stuff here. But with us, we just happen to now get together, which we should have been doing, because now we know we clearly have an open enemy that's not going to play with you, don't think you're cute, don't care that you're good with sports, don't care that you can sing. Like, he don't care about none of that. He like, I can't stand your guts. And I'm gonna do everything in my power to let you know, like, the blatantism of it helps you to be on point. Because when somebody clearly don't like you, you can't even do fantasy.
Right.
Because now you're in the reality. Like, this dude is not playing with us. And he's also helping to reveal the other people who feel like that. There are people who are feeling themselves so much right now.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is like their hero.
Right. And they're showing everything.
Oh, they done lost their mind.
And this country has only been able to function on deceit.
Right.
And holding up this banner of, we represent truth, freedom, love, all of these so-called American values and all of this stuff, but it's all been a lie. It's been a lie. So a lot of people have had cognitive dissonance, thinking that their reality is something that it's not. And no, this Trump America is showing you in your face, dang, you have to face this bullshit.
Yup. That's real talk. That is real talk. Are you familiar with the representative? I think her name is Sheila Jackson. Back in June of last year, came up with the RH40. I guess this was a RH40. I think this was a bill introduced, and it was around a commission to study and develop reparations proposals for African American Act. Are you familiar with that?
I am, and we had an issue with Sheila Jackson Lee because she's not ADOS, first of all. So
what is she?
Jamaican.
Okay. See, I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, Jamaican, if I'm not mistaken. I'll check to make sure.
Okay, no worries.
But we need to have people that is full-throated when it comes to us, and some of that's actually, she took it on, but that's actually a bill that's been sitting it's been wallowing in the House for like 30 years.
Wow.
It's been there. It's been in the House. It just hasn't moved. But the reason why it's moving now is because of the conversation that has been pushed by ADOS on social media to get it to this point, to force them to pick it back up, because it's been dead for like the last 20 years. Damn. It's been dead, so it's been there. We're trying to get some of the language in HR 40 changed. We've done some edits. Sandy Derry, who's an economist from Duke University, and he was also at MIT. He has done edits on HR 40 as far as what it should say. And one of the main things he did is to make sure that it's distinct for the American descendants of slavery, because the language in there basically was going to just say that black people in America were going to get our old reparations. That's a problem.
Gotcha.
So he made it more distinct. So we're working on HR 40 as far as making sure those edits go through, but we're dealing with a Republican Senate right now. So it may pass the House, but if it gets to the Senate, it's going to be dead on arrival.
Wow.
So if it dies, we need to work on another bill that doesn't have the same dirty laundry as HR 40 does. We need a new bill that addresses us more specifically, and we'll need to get a sponsor from the Congress that can push the bill. So that's where we are with HR 40. But if it goes right now to the Senate, it will be dead on arrival because the Republicans got the Senate. So really the Senate needs to be turned blue before we can get a reparations bill passed, unless the Senate gets struck by lightning and they decide to have a come to white Jesus moment.
Right on.
Right.
So was that sitting there when Obama was president for 8 years?
Yes, that's been there. HR 40 has been there since the 80s.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been there for a minute. So, but we know in this Congress, we don't have any faith that, or in that Senate, we don't have any faith that HR 40 would even pass. But hey, we'll see.
Well, stranger things have happened, bro.
Yeah, stranger
things have happened. And I think if they really think America is burning down for real, they probably try to throw something. And some Negroes will be so happy. They said we're gonna give everybody 2 pieces of chicken, and they probably sign off on it or something. I don't know. It's always like, who do you think's gonna really step in and really advocate for Black folks to get their just dessert? Like, or do you think people felt like they really don't owe nothing?
Say again?
Do you really feel like, so it's a twofold thing. Do you really feel like there are people who feel like Black folks aren't, the descendants of enslaved people, that they are not owed anything, the descendants? Or do you really think there's somebody that would get in there and fight and be like, you know what, y'all, let's just give it up?
I think you got a little bit of both. I believe there's some that will say, you know what, let's give it up. There are voices out there that are pushing for that. So that's why I say it's going, but they're not on the Republican side. Most of the folks on the Republican side aren't necessarily for reparations. But we can pressure people that's on the blue side to be full-throated about reparations. Because they're not gonna, that's why we're using our vote for leverage.
Gotcha.
Because they can't have any semblance of ever getting control of anything without the Black vote. So that's why we say, okay, you're not for reparations, we can't support you. So we're forcing people running for these offices to take a position on reparations. And if they don't, if they're against reparations, we're not voting for them. Because the difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, as you know, Black folks are the base of the Democratic Party. They really can't do anything without us. That's why it's so important for them to control our opposition, like we control our leadership, like I said.
I agree.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Are there any other bills we should be looking at for today?
That's the last of the bills, but I did want to talk about this study that was being done. It's called the Mayors Endorse Reparations. That study pegged at $6.2 quadrillion. Now, it says a political organization for U.S. mayors has adopted a resolution in support of reparations for Blacks. And while the mayors didn't address the cost, one study has suggested it could reach 6.2 quadrillion. That would be 1 trillion. And that's, no, my bad. That would be 1,000 trillion. And that's without considering the cost of colonial slavery as well as racial discrimination following the abolition of slavery in the United States. By comparison, the gross domestic product of the world for 2019 was about 142 trillion, making the reparations about 43 times the total of the world's production for the year. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about that right quick is because it's bullshit.
Right on.
What I mean by that is this is a story that's floating around just to piss white folks off and say even more how they got to fight against reparations. It's basically, they're basically putting everybody that's putting that out, every story you see, you might have seen that floating on social media.
I did.
If you've seen it floating on social media, ignore it. All it is propaganda to make people hate the reparations movement even more. Because when you say it's 1,000 trillion, people are going to shut off right there like, oh no, this reparation thing is crazy. There's no way we're going to be able to pay this, you know? So every site you see that on is actually a right-leaning Republican site talking about that. And they're just using it as propaganda against the reparations movement. So don't get hyped up by that when y'all see it.
Thank you for that. That's great information, because I don't even think people even understand how propaganda works. There's thoughts that go into propaganda. It's not as plain as black and white as people like. It's going into your psyche. They push things inside of you because they know what it's going to do to you.
Exactly. Pushing buttons.
Push them.
Oh yeah. In closing, I thank you. I want your viewers to remember that all politics is local, and we got to get involved on a local level. Nobody's saying run. And I know in the conscious community, a lot of us have shunned voting, and I get it. I understand. We know that the system is corrupt. I know the system is corrupt. I'm not fooled by that. I'm not jaded by that. But it's like when the cat's away, the mice will play. Mm-hmm. It's like you're letting the fox in the hen house if you don't participate in the political system. So we have to participate in some form of another.
Right on, brother. Thank you for saying that, because we definitely need to hear that. I always tell people I vote out of the respect for my ancestors, because I know if they was alive, the ones who made it happen, I wouldn't be able to have that even as an option, to be honest with you. So I don't take it, I don't look at it like that. Look, it's like, no, it's my duty, it's my sacrifice. Like, I'm doing it for them. So sometimes you need to do it for somebody else, but you really end up doing it for yourself. Because voting right now would affect you, not my ancestors.
That's right.
Push me to that, So I'll be sitting up here looking like a damn fool. So and be complaining about stuff when I didn't vote. That's just, that always cracks me up. I'll be like, did you vote? No. Well, man, get out of here. Like, that's how I feel, like, flag and go on, take a seat somewhere.
Right.
Thank you so much, brother, for sharing this information. Y'all, we'll definitely be back as we get more information. We got to keep talking about reparations. It's due to us, family. Y'all have a great night. Peace, fam.
Peace. Thank you.